some goldfish. She sat very, very still, but now and then the tip of her tail twitched as if it was alive. Peter thought it best to go away without speaking to her. He had heard about cats from his cousin, little Benjamin Bunny. He went back toward the tool shed, but suddenly, quite close to him, he heard the noise of a scritch, scratch, scratch, scritch. Peter scuttered underneath the bushes, but soon as nothing happened, he came out and climbed up on a wheelbarrow and peeped over. The first thing he saw was Mr.